Might not avoid Robert Williams in their first-round series versus the Boston Celtics. After all, according to our Adrian Wojnarowski, there is a very real chance Williams returns for the Celtics-Nets series. As for the other defensive stalwart in question, that would be Ben Simmons, also working his way back from the back injury that's been plaguing him. Here's our Brian Windhorst earlier with the latest on Simmons' status.
I am told that Ben Simmons is targeting games 4, 5, or 6 for making his Brooklyn Nets debut. I mean, I got to say that I was taken aback by being told that information, and my response was, is he even playing 5-on-5 yet? And the answer to that is no, but the hope is by the end of the week he can ramp up to that. So that is still some time. We're still talking about over 7 days. It's a big ask, but I have to say that really for 7, 8 weeks now, I've heard nothing but pessimism on the Ben Simmons front, and that has switched dramatically in the last few days. So, I mean, right now I would say I have to report that it is possible we will see Ben Simmons in this series against the Celtics.
Okay, I can't wait for the series. Game 4, 5, or 6. Ben Simmons hasn't played since last year's playoffs. Jay, I don't know why you're cracking up, but you can tell me why.
Molly, this is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
What?
It really is.
What is?
Did you hear what Brian Windhorst said?
Yeah.
My man is still not playing 5v5 basketball yet.
Yeah.
Right? He has not played a game since June 20th, Game 7 of last year. He's had back issues.
Yeah.
There have been mental issues for him that he hasn't talked about, but his camp has talked openly about to a degree. Now you're trying to tell me that you're going to drop him in Game 4, Game 5 of a playoff intensity series with the Boston Celtics, with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, who he's never played basketball with before. And that's supposed to make me believe that all of a sudden the Nets are going to be the favorite. Look, I think the Nets have a legit chance to win. But I think how you transition Ben Simmons back into basketball is very important. I don't think dropping him into Game 4 or Game 5 of a series against a guy who's a well-seasoned coach like Ime Udoka. Do you know what coaches would do? Okay, you want to drop him back in? You're going to try to hide him offensively? We're going to throw a double team at Kevin Durant. You haven't taken a shot. You haven't been in the spotlight in a year. Show me who you are. Show me who you are right now. Play at the highest level in an intensity series and show me who you are, Ben Simmons.
Okay, tell me if I'm being ignorant, but I look at it as like, what's there to lose? Put him out there for a few minutes. See what he can do. So
the ball, all of a sudden, it disrupts your whole offense.
Okay.
Right? The ball gets taken out of Kyrie Irving's hands. How is Kevin Durant going to play alongside a guy like Ben Simmons? Like, how does all that fit? My thing is, it's like doing a show with you guys. I can't come on and do one show, and it's our first time ever doing a show, and expect to understand your cadence.
Some people do, though. I'm just telling you, don't give the show example, because some people come up first time, and it's all good. It's smooth. There's chemistry, and I'm like, they got it.
I'm just saying, as a guy that's played along, it takes a minute to figure out continuity.
Yes, first take a little different than Celtics Nets first series. Fair.
I'm in agreement with him in this regard. It's almost disrespectful to the game to think that you could just drop a dude onto the court that hasn't played in 10 months and think that, okay, here we go. Here's the thing, though, I will say, look, could he play for 15 minutes and have some impact at all defensively? I think he could, because Jason Tatum, the last time he played the Nets, had 54 points. And Durant guarded him a lot in that game, but you got switches, you got smaller guys on that team that are going to have to guard him. So to put a 6'10" guy out there to maybe for 15 minutes, could he have some impact on Jason Tatum? Yes, he could. But to your point offensively, they're showing these little clips. It's kind of like Zion. They show him dunking. Well, Ben, they show him, and he goes like just his little floater hook in front of the rim, right, and dribbles the ball. Does one of these. I'm saying to myself, I could go get a dozen people from Presbyterian Memorial Hospital and post-op right now and bring him on the gurney to do what he's doing on these videos. So I'm like, well, okay, what does that correlate to him guarding people or being effective offensively? Specifically offensively, here's the thing. If I'm Ime Udoka and that guy sees the floor anywhere near the bonus, I'm putting him on the foul line. We all have our bugaboos. Some people it's clowns. Some people it's snakes. his free throws in an important moment, okay? This
Mine's
is what
rats.
his worst nightmare. There you go.
Yeah.
We've all got it.
Bad place to live in New York City.
We've all got it. Yeah, mine are alligators, and I just bought a house in Florida. So, again, it doesn't make any sense
I would
whatsoever.
take that risk, though, to have the sunshine.
It doesn't, right. That's basically.
A risk of an alligator for the sunshine money.
Hey, listen, this was me making that decision.
We're all going to go somehow.
Listen, if we all waste certain things, but I'm saying that's his worst nightmare. So if he's on the court, now you don't start fouling guys to put him in a bonus because now it's harder to guard KD and Kyrie. I'm just saying if he's on the court and you are at 4 fouls, 5 fouls in a quarter, there's no way I'm letting Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving shoot the basketball. I'm taking the ball out of their hands because if I'm fouling Ben Simmons if he touches it, go to the line. You haven't been there in 10 months, and this is probably your biggest fear. Go make important free throws. Disrupt the flow of your offense. So offensively, major liability. Defensively, I do think he could have somewhat of an impact.
Let me try this again. If this is going to be more harm than good here, then why are the Nets even considering it?
I do not know. Like, I really do not know. Do you know how intense this atmosphere is going to be? Do you know who is coming back to Boston to play in the TD Garden? You know Kyrie is coming back to play against his former team.
I'm trying to get
incense, all this stuff. That environment is going to be so intense. And we talked about this before, Legs. There's so much on the line for Jason Tatum. This is an opportunity for Jason Tatum to say, no, I am no longer one of these guys waiting to burst into this upper echelon. I have arrived. I am going at Kevin Durant. So as soon as I see Ben Simmons on the floor, you talk about his back being bad. How are you going to defend Ben Simmons? Can you stay down in the stance? I'm going to attack you every single possession. I'm going to increase the intensity of the pace of the game. I want to see you run. I want to see how your conditioning is. And you know what? It also takes away from KD and Kyrie because how Ben Simmons needs the ball in his hands to be active offensively.
Better strategy, I think, for the Celtics would have been, all right, listen, they looked great the other night, those two guys. They played great offensively. Let's go to game 1, game 2 against Boston. Okay, whoa, Jason Tatum's averaging 37 points a game. We're down 0-2. Now, having not discussed it very much, all of a sudden you start talking about, hey, Ben Simmons might make an appearance in this series because at that point he's got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Okay?
Understood.
But going into the series to be talking about this, I don't understand it because we both agree the effectiveness is really questionable. And you're doing it right after a performance in which both of those guys look so good offensively. Again, you dig yourself a hole and Tatum's going off. Why not? Now Ben Simmons has everything to gain and nothing to lose. That might be a better strategy. But now we're already discussing this, and that's what we're going to be talking about now all the way through the first 2 games of the series every day. I think they've been better off as a surprise. Once you find out how are we going to do in this series against this guy guarding him.
The last thing I'll say on the subject matter is go back to your original point, Legs. Like in the game of basketball, Boston has been one of the top defensive teams the entire year.
Yeah.
I know losing Robert Williams hurts them defensively. But think about the 2 things that have happened in the past 48 hours. Now, one of them I think was a big deal, but now it's turning into a bigger deal. Bruce Brown going to the podium saying, well, they lost Robert Williams. We're going to attack Al Horford and Daniel Tice. Okay. Oh, you are. If you're Boston, okay. Now, I know people think, oh, that's something little, but we are petty. I'm a petty individual. You say something about me or about my team a year ago, I'll remember it when I play you. So that's one. Now you're saying you have the audacity to think that you're going to drop a dude in the middle of this series and that he's going to have an impact on our team. He's going to hurt us. So, like, all these things are additive pieces of motivation that I don't know why you even say stuff like that. You keep the element of surprise and you let that work to your advantage.
We may have buried the lead, by the way. Did they not just say Robert Williams might be coming back for this series?
Yes.
Man, I don't know how Jay's on record as picking the Nets in this series definitively.
How you feeling about
there
that?
you go. It's the second setup you had for me today, Legs.
How you feeling about that, big time?
Yeah, when you heard that, now's you're out. Series hadn't started
Don't
yet.
you have season tickets to the Nets?
I do.
Do you have playoff
Unless you
tickets?
laid
I do.
money.
Molly, what angle are you coming at me from right now?
Talk about that, because my dad's a diehard Celtics fan, and I'm trying to make this happen. So I'm just letting you know.
Well, since I have to be up every morning at 3 a.m., I will happily give you my tickets.
We'll talk
That's
about
big news, though, man. I
huge.
thought he was out most of the series. They're talking about him making an appearance early in the series. That is an enormous development for the Boston Celtics defensively.
And that changes everything for them because then there's no worry about because his feet are so quick laterally. He can help you on every pick and roll. He can come from the weak side and be that defensive presence. His sheer presence on the court alters shots at the rim.
Yeah, 4 offensive rebounds a game, too.
So do you want to change your pick now? Because I will allow you, because the facts have changed. Do you still want to stay with the Nets?
It's hard to go against KD and Kyrie.
Listen,
you know how I feel about KI. I do.
I'm going to give you an out right now. I'm your boy, man. I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire like some people will.
Listen,
I'm going to give you an out right now.
Time out. This man's walking around with multiple pairs of Jordans. He's like the debt collector.
I won a lot.
Like,
Stephen A., I still haven't gotten my Tom Ford suit. If he doesn't want to pay me with the suit, my bank account, I can send it to him, and he could just transfer.
Zelle.
Yeah,
there's a lot of ways.
There's ways to give me the money.
Digital transactions
He's just going around cleaning up. Hey, guys, before we move on, though, seriously, with Ben Simmons, so would you just not play him at all? What about against the Bucks, against Giannis?
I wouldn't mind if they were able to get by this series, seeing how he kind of, once again, situation. If they're up 2-0, I get that. Going into the series, I don't think that's smart. But if you find a way, this goes to 7 and you win. I don't mind him working out for a couple days, going through practice. Let him get some reps. He hasn't even played 5-on-5 yet, Molly.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to throw somebody into a Game 4 scenario after playing 5-on-5 for 4 days?
Wendy had a great line. He said the only time this guy put a uniform on for the Nets was picture day, the day he got there. He hasn't worn it since, and now you're talking about, hey, man, we need you to win this series. That's a different tone than a little bit of a progression, getting him a taste, getting his foot in the water a little bit, and maybe through this series, and you get past it. Now he plays a more prominent role against Milwaukee potentially. But in this series, to now be talking about this as we need this guy to win the series, it's unimaginable to me that he would be enough to sway this in the Nets' direction.
One last thing I want to say. For a guy that dealt with a lot of mental pressure, right, and he that's been the case about it. I don't understand why you create so much momentum for us to try to figure out whether you're going to play. Even the IG yesterday, right? Yeah. The picture of the feet with the Kanye West lyrics, I wrote them down. Do you know what they are? Money never made me, making me do something. Nah, can't make me. Even if the money's low, can't pay me. You're setting these lyrics up on your IG Live, but you don't want the mental part of it. Like that's going to come with that. You're setting yourself up for that.
You're creating a build-up.
Yes, why? Less is more.
Maybe he wants it, but let me ask you this, because obviously it's the playoffs. We care about winning. Everyone wants to hoist the Larry O'Brien. But as far as Ben Simmons' psyche as former athletes, do you think it would be good for him to get in this series? For him mentally to get those reps against the Boston Celtics, is this the right move?
That guy needs to get to an offseason, hit the reset button, get himself together, come in next year. Because that's those first 6 weeks of the season. There's no pressure on you. Find your way back to what you were as a player. With what we saw out of Ben Simmons in the Atlanta series, which is hard for all of us to forget. You got a starting point guard that did not attempt a field goal in 5 fourth quarters in a 7-game series. Something's going on. Look at his free throws in that series. And then, obviously, the massive meltdown in Game 7 where he has an uncontested dunk that he doesn't want. That's hard to forget it all. He needs to get to an offseason, get it back, and then start with baby steps at the start of the year with new teammates, new environment, less pressure. Throwing this guy onto the court in a pressure situation against Boston with everybody watching you. And by the way, an awful lot of people wanting this guy to fail. He's going to feel that right now because of the way this played out.
Boston's a tough city, too.
Yes.
No question. That's a lot for a guy on his plate. I say just come back next year and wade into that deep end of the pool.
I get the fighter's mentality, but a summer of working out with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, playing a ton of pickup, that's the way you ease yourself back into basketball after not playing for a full year. A full year he has not played.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. All right, we'll leave it there, guys. Coming up, a little NFL to get into. Tell us how you really feel. The Nets. Brooklyn was led by great play from Kyrie Irving, who put up 34 points, 12 assists in the big win. And remember, he's now eligible to play in any game, whether it's in New York or not. Jay Williams with a hot take on Kyrie yesterday. Let's go.
I think Kyrie Irving is the best offensive player we have in the game of basketball. I'm not saying he's the most efficient. I know that's part of the conversation. I've never seen, and y'all can sit up here and say whatever the hell you want about how I defended Kyrie during the vaccine stuff. I'm just telling you, as a guard who studies this game, who's challenged people, escapability, I hear you use that word a ton, his difficulty in shot making.
I understand.
I've never seen somebody be able to do what he's been able to do with the ball.
I'm going to come to with this. I'm going to come to with this.
Ever.
Let's just marinate on that for a second.
Just sit on that for a second.
We took that moment. Okay, I took it in.
I understand there's a 7-footer on his team.
Who's the best offensive player in basketball today?
Well, at least now we know.
You put the picture up right behind him. I mean, obviously that's where we're going.
We do know at least now why you picked the Nets to sweep the Celtics, which is amazing.
Don't start with these false narratives out there. Nobody said sweep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nobody said sweep. See how he don't stop this. Don't do this to me. No, I didn't say no.
He did not say they were going to sweep.
Thank you.
He didn't say sweep. Now we heard Robert Williams.
He didn't say sweep.
You might not clean up with this,
I think the word he used was dismiss. I don't remember. Something like that. Anyway, listen.
Cold-blooded.
I disagree because of this guy right here, Kevin Durant, but I totally understand where your argument's coming from. All right, when you look at Kyrie Irving's ability to dominate the middle area of the floor at his size, we've never really seen a guy do it at his height, be able to get any shot he wants anytime against any defender, any scheme, any size. It doesn't matter because of the electric handle, the range, the incredible, really, finishing ability and innate ability to move the ball and manipulate it around shot blockers at the rim. He's ambidextrous when he finishes, like all of those reasons. You make a great argument. Ultimately, though, I'm going to go with the guy that possesses the greatest combination in one body of length, handle, and shooting ability, because we've never had a guy walk this planet like Kevin Durant with the length at 6'11", the pure stroke, and then handles the ball like a two-guard. No one player has ever possessed all three of those things. And what that means is at no point against Kevin Durant is there a win defensively. And that's why I think he's the best offensive player. You can't put a certain type of personnel on him. You can't force it to any area of the floor that's a weakness, or any type of shot. You can't really even run extra guys at him because of where he's operating on the floor makes it impossible to run double teams at him a lot of times from that area. So ultimately for me, Jay, it comes down to this guy has an answer for everything. And I do think because of Kyrie's limitations with his size, there are situations you can get him in the court against certain defenders that he's making a very, very, very difficult shot, an almost unmakeable shot at times. I don't think anything that leaves Kevin Durant's fingertips is unmakeable. And that's why I would say, to me, he is still the best offensive player in the league.
It's always guys like you, guys 6'6", trying to hold the little guys back. That's what this comes to. It comes down to length and size. Look, first off, what does this say about the Nets that we're having an argument about who is the most gifted offensive player?
Exactly.
And
should be more confident in
two
your
guys
pick.
On the same team. Yes, but sometimes you guys are making me waver a little bit here.
It's intimidating.
It is.
We're just hitting him.
It's just jabbing me. Then Molly comes through with the haymakers.
We'll have him flip by the end of the show.
Yeah,
He's got about 45 minutes.
Very manipulative over here.
Here's what I will say about Kyrie that I think doesn't get enough credit. You see, it's funny, when people walk up to me on the street, a lot of people say to me, oh, you're taller than what I thought you were. Because you see me on TV when I played and I was next to people who were aliens. LeBron James is an alien. Like, LeBron James is the size and weight of Karl Malone, but can move that way. I worked out with KD. When you see him, you're like, wait, man, you're 7 feet. You can do all that. I think one of the reasons why I'm probably a little bit more biased towards Kyrie is because it's more like Steph Curry to me. It's more like if you were seeing Kyrie Irving walk down the street and he had a Yankees cap on, you wouldn't notice him different than anybody else on the streets of New York City or any other city in America. So when I see a person at that size, at that height, have the escapability, be able to finish at the rim, not just with both hands, but at different angles on the glass. Like, there's sometimes he hits the ball almost towards the top of the backboard, and the ball drops in nothing but net. You can't double team. I'm seeing guys run double teams at Kevin Durant before he gets the ball over the court, and KD will make the right play. He'll give it up. I see Kyrie oh, please, run double teams at me. Because my dribble is like, I'm a wizard. I'm a 3.0 version of Kevin Strickland, right? Rod Strickland, which is different. So that and the finishing ability and the tough shot-making ability. I know that Kevin Durant can shoot over the top of people. Like, I know that last year, that foot being on the line, that could have been a game winner. But there is a part of me watching KD on game-winning shots over the last couple of shots. I'm like, do I want Kyrie Irving to take those tough shots? Because I think I can make a case that Kyrie might be a more difficult shot maker than Kevin Durant. People always think, oh, because KD's size, he can shoot over people. But Kyrie's ability to create space off the dribble is what I think makes him unique. And I don't think KD has that. KD has to shoot over the top of you, which I'm not saying, you can if you put size on him, or if you put a bigger guy on him, he can create space with his dribble. But Kyrie's ability to create space on anybody it's something that makes him unique and different.
It's a phenomenal point, and my counter to your argument would be about the difficult shot making, because you're 100% right. Kyrie Irving is one of the greatest difficult shot makers this league's ever seen. You'd put Kobe in that category, right? Just the contested mid-range shot maker. That's the toughest shot in basketball. Guys draped on you at 18 feet, and you're still making shots. So I would put him in that category, but I would say this. Maybe the reason that you would put Kyrie Irving ahead of Kevin Durant in terms of making difficult shots is because fewer shots are difficult to make for Kevin Durant.
That's fair.
Okay, yeah, because it doesn't look as difficult because he's getting it off with that high release, and he's already 6'11" when he takes off. It doesn't look as hard to him, even though it's the same shot. It's a pull-up 18-footer with a guy in your face. With Kyrie, because of his height, it looks more difficult. Kevin Durant just makes it look easier, even though it's basically the same degree of difficulty on the shot going in.
That's fair.
Let me ask you this, and I'm asking you to prognosticate, but if we took a bunch of NBA players right now and we asked them this question, do you think they would say Kevin Durant?
I do.
I think probably the majority would, but I think also, I think a lot of guards that have to defend Kyrie on any given night, when he does things like he did the other night, I think the level of appreciation for his style of play has gone up dramatically, especially this season because of the amount of attention on him coming back and playing. And I get he's playing with fresh legs, but still, I mean, some of the shots he's making and some of the moves he makes, it's extraordinary. It's like watching Picasso on the basketball court.
Yeah. It's amazing. He's got a counter. He's got a counter.
A counter and a counter to that counter.
Throwing at him. And I've always thought the most underrated aspect of his game. I played with the guard in Washington that was one of the best I ever saw at moving the ball around and never getting it blocked at the rim was Rod Strickland.
Right.
And Kyrie Irving has that, and he's got it with either hand. Because you think he's taking it into bad situations, and somehow he ends up with something quality out of it at the end. It's really amazing to watch him manipulate the ball in traffic, in the paint. So, you know what? Maybe Jay's convincing me about it.
No one else would be.
It's close. I mean, it's not
gentlemen,
like.
No one else would be in the mix? It's just those two?
For greatest offensive player?
Currently?
Probably they're right.
They're probably 1-2.
Clear cut.
Clear cut 1-2.
All right.
Clear cut.
Fair enough. You know what you just saved yourself from?
What's that?
James Harden. Is he under pressure?
What? We don't get to talk about it?
Oh, you want it? You can do it right now if you want. Are you buying it?
No.
Because he says he's not feeling any pressure.
Absolutely not.
Oh, I thought you were going to be so happy you didn't want to talk about it anymore, Mr. Philly.
Oh, no, I don't mind because this is near and dear to my heart because it's just I can't fathom an athlete in that city coming up with his track record and some of the things that have happened to him in the postseason and coming in there with what the organization just went through, with all the drama around Ben Simmons, all they gave up to get him, going 2/3 of the year without any other player in mind except this player, and a guy in an MVP season next to him, and you say, I got nothing to prove. And hearing people driving off the road, tires screeching on the Ben Franklin Bridge as people pull off on Sports Talk Radio in Philly because you're going, what are you talking about? I don't feel any pressure. I've got nothing to prove, and nothing could be further from the truth. And he's putting it out there for public consumption.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to bother me with what you say. I'm beyond that. I'm good with who I am, and I'm secure. And that's fine for public consumption. But we all know how the human mind works. He's got to be alone with his own thoughts at times, and there's no question in my mind he's feeling it. And, by the way, I got news for you. He's going to feel it in a level of accountability and scrutiny like he has never experienced if he comes up small, particularly in this series, first-round series, and they go home with everything they went through to get to this point, if he does not deliver and get them at least to the next round, and part of it because he plays well, he's never going to deal with anything like he's dealt with it. People can say, oh, he's going to get his money anyway, and he should be good with that. Fine. If that's what you want to hang your hat on, I got my money, I'm a Hall of Famer, who cares? Great. Well, that's not what how the great ones think. You know, stand up there and say, yeah, man, I know there's pressure on me, and I'm going to deliver. I'd rather hear him say that than say, I don't have any pressure, and I've got nothing to prove.
Legs, I am so worried about Daryl Morey because if this is the leader of your team, I know what you or I would say. I'm competitive as hell. Like, I want to be the best at everything I do. So is there pressure? Yeah, there's pressure on me. But you know what? This city deserves a championship. And at the end of the day, that's why I was brought here. But when you think about James Harden, he's gotten everything he's always wanted. Oh, I don't like the way this situation is going in Houston. I want out. I forced my way out. Oh, now I'm in Brooklyn. Hey, this is not what I signed up for. Get me out. Now I'm in Philadelphia. Is there I'm okay. You know why? Because he knows. Is Daryl Morey, after moving heaven to earth, giving up the #1 pick in Ben Simmons, giving up Andre Drummond, Seth Curry, multiple draft picks. Is he going to mortgage the house and then just let James Harden walk out the street?
He's going to
get his money regardless. And that's the mentality I worry about. And I feel bad for Joel Embiid because at the end of the day, I want to see Joel Embiid rewarded for being healthy and hopefully giving a chance to win a championship.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm alone in my room. I stare at the wall. Who can I call?
Yeah, right. Only
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
Only you know,
But guess
Molly.
what? This girl's never going to admit it. The decision that had the sports world. Good day. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into First Take on this Friday Eve. SA is off today. He's traveling, getting set for all this NBA playoff goodness. But look who's here. Crewed up. Tim Legler, Jay Williams, Louis Riddick will be here. Damian Woody, I'm Molly Karam. Gentlemen, how we feeling? How we living?
Ready to go?
I got nothing to prove.
Are you? Is it the playoff?
you
Oh,
know.
wow.
So
Right off the
angry.
bat, you come out swinging like that. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Really?
We'll get there. I'm in a great
I
mood.
heard someone taking shots at him like he'll be at Fashion Week. I think that was windy.
I'm in a great mood.
Haymakers
I'm in a great
all
mood.
morning. So am I. Let's get it, guys. They were hot in Atlanta last night. How about those Hawks blew out the Charlotte Hornets in the play-in game 132-103. Atlanta will play the Cavaliers on Friday with the winner advancing to the Eastern Conference playoffs as the ace seed against #1 seed Miami. As for the Hornets, Miles Bridges was whistled for a goaltending call on DeAndre Hunter midway through the fourth quarter. Immediately went after game official James Williams, who called 2 quick texts on the fourth-year player as Bridges left the court and headed to the Charlotte locker room. A Hawks fan yelled in his direction, leading him to turn around and throw his mouthpiece. It hit a young woman by accident standing up in the arena. Here's Bridges with more.
I let my temper get the best of me. You know, that was definitely the wrong thing to do by throwing my mouthpiece. You know, I was aiming for the guy that was screaming at me, and it, you know what I'm saying, it hit a little girl. So that's definitely unacceptable on my part. And I take, you know, full responsibility. I'm ready for any consequence that the NBA gives me.
You're up first. How should Bridges be punished for throwing the mouthpiece?
I think the NBA should give him a hefty fine. I've known Miles Bridges since he was at Michigan State. I think Miles Bridges is an incredible talent. I really love the way he's ascended. First off, regardless of whether your mouthpiece hit somebody it wasn't intended to hit, you shouldn't be throwing your mouthpiece at anybody. I don't care who you are, what athlete. I get that fans sometimes can go over the line. I would love to hear more about what the fan had actually said that would push Miles to this point. I've known him to be a mild-tempered individual, but I think he should be fine. But I like the fact that Miles, right out of the gate, went to social media and said, hey, let me apologize to this young lady. He should apologize to any fan after throwing anything. But there's a lot on the line here for Miles Bridges. Didn't have a good game last night. Last fall, turned down a 4-year, $60 million contract. He's up for a max extension this year, 5 years, $170 million. I think he will get that from Michael Jordan and the Hornets. But when you see play like this, it leads into those type of things from a temperament perspective. Can you trust Miles Bridges moving forward? I think you can. I think he just made the wrong move.
Completely agree. I think you go back to, you know, what's going on in the game. He's a very competitive guy. He had a great year. He is going to get some votes for Defensive Player of the Year. He averaged 20+. They got smoked. He was frustrated. He thought he got fouled. Then they called a goaltender he didn't like. And next thing you know, boom, he explodes. He's walking to the locker room. Now, athletes are all used to walking through those tunnels in those situations, right? After games in hostile environments, you hear all kinds of stuff coming your direction, and you got to put those blinders on and just get to the locker room. He didn't. He stopped. He responded. Now, having said all of that, let's let the punishment fit the crime. Okay, he didn't turn and fire a basketball at somebody's face. He threw a mouthpiece that weighs ½ an ounce, and it brushed somebody's shoulder. I'm not saying that you ignore it, but if we're talking about trying to give this guy multiple game suspensions or something crazy like that, he's going to get a fine. I love the fact that he came out and what he said was perfect. He owned it. He didn't try to make any excuse for anything. Completely unacceptable. My actions, I reached out to the fan. I'm willing to accept any punishment the league hands down. You talk about like a scripted, perfect response for this situation, and that should
People
play
should
into
take notice on how he
100%.
handled that.
Agreed.
Even how he wanted to reach out to the fan as well. I thought that was huge in terms of his character and how he handled it, because obviously he was in the heat of the moment.
No question about it. And again, let's look at what the real consequences of it could be. It's a mouthpiece. It's a small piece of plastic that hits someone in the shoulder.
It's nasty, though, because I'm a germaphobe.
No, I hear you. No, I hear you. There's a gross component to it. I understand that.
I skeeve that kind of thing. But
I hear what you're saying. I agree with you that he should just get a fine. All I'm saying, though, is I look at situations, what would have happened the opposite way? If a fan had thrown something at the player, what would have been the reaction of the player? So I'm just saying, if we're holding accountability on both sides, he handled it correctly, still unacceptable, regardless of whether it hit the wrong person or not.
Yeah, I just will say this. We've all done a lot of things where we have to apologize, and we see it so much in sports in front of the podium. And yes, again, he couldn't have handled that with more class, more perfectly, and taking accountability and moving forward. All right, gentlemen, we're going on the court. Speaking of moving forward, can a healthy Hawks team, what do you think, Tim, upset the Heat?
Wouldn't say upset them, but, man, they're going to scare them. They're going to scare them. You know, I've been telling everybody this week, if I went up to anybody just about a month ago, just quickly hit them up in the hallway, hey, man, who played in the Eastern Conference Finals last year? You would have had a hard time remembering it was the Hawks. That's the run that they went on. So this is a team that's dangerous. Now, they did not have the kind of year, particularly the first half of the year defensively, that we expected to see. So they dug themselves out of a hole, but they are playing their best basketball right now. Now, John Collins sat there and watched this last night, and they still won that game by 30. If somehow he makes an appearance, man, now you've got a team that went to the conference finals that's got one of the most dangerous offensive weapons in the league in Trae Young, because he can beat you with his scoring or his playmaking and controls games, unlike few others. You now have a team that's going to feel very confident, because the one thing about the Eastern Conference, all these teams are really good. I don't know that there's a team out there that Atlanta looks at and says, man, you know, we really can't play with that team this year. When you look at Milwaukee or Miami or Boston or Philly or Brooklyn, I think Atlanta says, hey, we've got Trae Young. We went to the conference finals last year. We've got a puncher's chance in that series. So, Jay, I don't know if I'd pick Atlanta, like, you know, where you got to get on the line and, you know, make your pick known. All I'll say is, would that shock me if that went 6-7 competitive games against a team like the Heat, if the Hawks could beat Cleveland? No, that's not going to surprise me at all.
Let me say a couple of things here in this one, Legs. We just got done celebrating the top 75 reunion during the All-Star break for the NBA.
Yeah.
I truly do believe this. When it's all said and done, I think Trae Young will end up being on that top 75 all-time player list. He is that talented. I think there needs to be respect on his name. You and I were talking during our show, Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max, and we're saying when you think about Stephen Curry, 6'3.5", 6'4", people see him on the TV screen, they think he's 6'1", but in reality, he's a lot taller. I've stood next to Trae Young. I'm 6'2". You know, he's labeled 6'1". He might be 5'10", 5'11", like on the verge, right, of 6 feet.
Yeah.
What he's doing, how he's changed the dynamic of how the game is played with his handle, with his shot-making ability, I think is a differentiator, right? 14th time in NBA history that a player has finished a season averaging 28 and 9 assists. 14th time in NBA history. So are there some health elements to this whole thing for this team? Yes, I think obviously Bogey having the knee injury, even though he's still playing on top of that. You look at Lou Williams, you know, will he come back and play? John Collins is a huge piece to this team, defensively what he brings to the table, and also a lob threat for Trae Young off every pick and roll possession. But if they are healthy, and I love the Heat. I think the Heat have by far the best culture. Their culture is up with the best of the best in the NBA, with the Phoenix Suns. But the one thing I've always worried about the Heat is when it comes down to it, down the wire, could Jimmy Butler be that clutch player for them to make shots when you need it the most? I've always thought Jimmy Butler would be a better 2 option, 3 option on a championship team. Now, I know they got close in the bubble, but I've never seen him as the primary guy. I know Tyler Hero, guys like that are emerging. I love what they bring from a defensive culture, P.J. Tucker and company, Bam Adebayo. But if they are healthy, with the way Trae Young is involved in pick and rolls, if he gets going, yeah, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and I think there is a legit chance it could go 7. It could go 7.
All right, let's flip it. You know who else put in work? No surprise, that'd be LaMelo Ball. Are his days in Charlotte numbered, in your opinion?
Be more specific in your question. You think he's just going to want to leave there in a couple of years? Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm saying he's going to want to leave.
Yeah, I mean, and who knows? I mean, I look at it this way. The entire culture of how guys come into the league has changed, Jay, in my opinion. I think guys are already thinking about their next stop before draft night, right? That's just different. It used to be, guys got drafted by a team, and in your naivete, you're thinking, man, I'm going to spend my whole career with this organization. Guys don't think that way anymore. So, yeah, there's a very good possibility he could be somewhere else. At the end of the day, there are a number of factors that guys will put in front of them on a piece of paper in determining their criteria for choosing where they want to play. Now, money is always going to be probably at the top of the list, but these guys are getting great money no matter where they go. So then it comes down to who are you playing for, meaning who's the coaches? What are you playing for in terms of, are we playing for a title or are we playing just as another team in this league? Who are you playing with is maybe the biggest factor outside of money. Who are my teammates? Because these guys form relationships. They want to play with other stars. They develop these relationships well before they get to the NBA. So based on all of that, in a small market like Charlotte, is it going to be shocking to see him somewhere else year 5? No, not at all.
Yeah, I think it's about one thing. I think it's about winning. And the Hornets haven't won a playoff series in 18 seasons.
I have a home in Durham, North Carolina. My mom stays down there. I spend a lot of time in North Carolina, Durham, and Charlotte. I love the Queen City. I love Charlotte. But when I look at LaMelo Ball, you say year 5, 3 years from now, right? How old will LeBron James be in 3 years from now? If you're going on, what, on 40, 41?
Yeah.
I look at that as a serious transition piece. I'm trying to tell you, when I look at LaMelo Ball, I see nothing but purple and gold. It's written over the way he dresses, the style in which he pulls up to games. It relates to his whole social media image.
Where he's from.
His dad had so much to do with how things are orchestrated, even with Lonzo getting there the first time. And I know for Michael Jordan, a lot of people have always questioned his draft selections. He got it right with this one.
Yeah.
But your ability to keep guys like Zion, are you going to be able to keep him in New Orleans is a big-time question. Or does he want to be in New York with R.J. Barrett and Cam Reddish? For a guy like LaMelo Ball, being the guy down. This year he averaged over 22 points, 8 assists. He's almost like a walking triple-double. Are there other aspects of his game's legs in which he can be better? 1,000%. But there's certain players that when you see, you're like, that's it. There's something special there. And it just doesn't feel like it fits in Charlotte as much as it would fit in L.A. Just me.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's keep it rolling here and get to the late night play-in game in New Orleans in front of a sold-out crowd at the Smoothie King Center. The Pelicans walked away with a 113-103 victory over the San Antonio Spurs to advance in the NBA's play-in tournament. McCollum got off to a fast start, scoring 27 points in the first half, including 19 in the second quarter, when he was perfect 7 of 7 from the field. The Pelicans will play at the Clippers on Friday night for a chance to advance to the playoffs as the 8th seed and take on the top-seeded Phoenix Suns. Jay Williams, what did C.J. McCollum prove last night to you?
So to me, I think it's over the course of time. I think C.J. has proven that he's a better teammate to where Brandon Ingram is today than where LeBron James was to Brandon Ingram when he was in L.A. When you come into the league, when your expectation is to win now, that puts a lot of pressure on young players, right? Like, you know this from a guy who's played. Like, your first couple of years in the league, like, you're trying to find yourself. You're trying to find yourself with veterans. You're trying to find yourself with a new arena, new crowds. You're just dealing with making money for the first time, how that affects your family. How that affects you personally as an individual. So you're learning how to work. You're learning how to be a pro. Now, I'm saying LeBron James is great to learn that from. But when you play with LeBron James, I've heard J.R. Smith say it. I've heard D. Wade say it. The level of expectation goes boom, so fast that everything you do gets criticized. The way you work out or the lack thereof you working out, the way you take shots or the way you don't take shots. Look at what we're seeing this year with this team. People are questioning whether they should hold on to Anthony Davis. Look what it's done to Russell Westbrook. So the environment has changed now for Brandon Ingram. And you have a guy like C.J. McCollum who's a different type of leader because the expectation doesn't come to win yesterday, right? We can build towards something now. Hey, young fella, this is how you get into the game. Here's how you work. And also it's a byproduct of where you're at, right? Now, when Zion comes back, if he's able to come back, I think expectations increase drastically. But what I'm saying for the type of player that Brandon Ingram is now, I think it takes a while for you to grow into that limelight of being the guy or playing with the guy instead of CJ, who still holds himself like he's the guy, but cachet doesn't bring the same expectations to the table like LeBron James does to a young pup coming into the game.
That's super insightful, especially the component of being a teammate to a young player and how that empowers you if you get next to the right guy.
Yes.
That's a very important component. Now, here's what I'll say about C.J. McCollum. And I can go back and I can find all kinds of sound, Jay, from over the summer, because I was clamoring for the Philadelphia 76ers to move Ben Simmons for C.J. McCollum, because you could have got C.J. McCollum plus a pick Potentially Robert Covington could have come back in that deal. And you had C.J. McCollum. And I was telling people, and I went on the record and said, listen, if C.J. McCollum gets his own team as a starting point guard in this league, book it. 23-8. Those are his numbers. And you know what those numbers do? They put you in the Hall of Fame. And that's how good I think C.J. McCollum is offensively. I was wrong. It's actually 25-8. That's what he's capable of when you give him his own team. This dude is built for the moment. I go back to a few years ago. You remember the Game 7 they played against Denver on the road? Damian Lillard struggled in that game. I don't even know. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Let's say something like 3 for 17. C.J. McCollum had 30-plus in that game on the road in a Game 7 in a marquee game with the lights turned up. Got them on to the next round. I will never forget how clutch he was in that game. He's mid-range. He's deep. He handles it. He can run ball screen. Well, he's got his own team now. And look at the way this guy is playing, and look what he did last night. That's why I was asked to make my prediction before the game, and I said, very simple, this is C.J. McCollum's moment. He's built for this. This is going to be his game. And it was, and Ingram was great too. But that was about C.J. McCollum controlling the game, and that's why I actually think they're going to beat the Clippers. That's the first road team to win one of these play-in games. I think New Orleans can beat them, and now I start spinning to next year. Imagine McCollum with Ingram and a healthy Zion Williamson. You now have a team that's relevant in the West.
You know, Molly, you never have to worry about C.J. McCollum showing up to gym, up to work in shape. Like, think about the difference. Yeah. Just me saying that one line for James Harden. I'm not saying that his ceiling is as high as James Harden's, but what he brings to the table each and every day and the way he leads, like thinking about him and Joel Embiid together, you can make a case that's a better duo than James Harden.
And went to Lehigh. The local people love him in Philadelphia.
I'm sure. And he essentially said after, we're just getting started here as an organization. But you mentioned Zion. So Zion Williamson hasn't played in a game the entire season. Our own Cassidy Hubbard reporting that a return to play is not imminent, and there's no chance you could see him in a possible matchup against the Clippers, let alone a series against the Suns. But yesterday, before New Orleans playoff game, Williamson looked a lot like the healthy Zion we saw last season, throwing down a 360 dunk. Jay, do you believe what's happening here? Do you believe Zion is ready to play?
Hell no. No. Seeing him dunk doesn't mean he's healthy to me. Okay. And now I get it. It's one hell of a dunk.
Yeah.
I mean, but for me as an athlete, right, I pay attention to smaller nuances. So the dunk is always what I've seen Zion Williamson do, even when he's not healthy, on a hurt knee in high school. It's little things like the blow-by speed. So if you're watching the video, look, it's like a senior citizen trying to give a move to like a standing target, right? The guy defending him.
And then folks like me are like, ooh,
look at the dunk. And I'm looking at the move before the dunk saying, I need to see way more.
For Game 7.
Exactly, explosiveness. I need to see him running up and down the court doing conditioning. I need to see him doing so much more than just a dunk where I can run to the assumption and say, hey, throw him in Game 4 of a playoff series. Why would you want to do that to a young asset like Zion Williamson? Like, think the guy he's played 85 games, legs. 85 games. He's missed the entire year. You're telling me now, after missing the entire year, a guy who had him on a minutes restriction when he did play, we're going to throw him back into a playoff intensity and say, just give us 10 to 15 minutes. No, I'm making sure that whatever I do with you, if I'm Trajan Langdon, the general manager of the Pelicans, whatever we do, we are setting ourselves up for a long-term success with you. I see what we can have. C.J. McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson. That is a core. That's a trio that can get us very deep into the Western Conference.
Here's what I thought when I saw that clip. The first thing I thought was, man, wouldn't that be fun to do that one time in my life? That'd be a lot of fun. You know what that feels like, okay? That's the first thing I thought.
Amen.
The second thing I thought is, this is actually more about hope for the franchise and the fan base to see it. Because think about it. We just went months without a sighting of Zion Williamson. No idea what he looked like. How was he progressing physically? We saw one clip where he was doing these little side-to-side shuffles, and it looked terrible. You're like, oh, my God, this is one of the most elite athletes to ever step in this league, and this is what he looks like right now? So then they shelved the video. You know, maybe no more video on Zion right now. So now you see this video. This isn't about him playing this year. This is about them projecting, hey, guys, look, Zion is back to being explosive athletically, and it's hopeful for next year. But here's the only problem with that. Listen, I buy in. Season ticket holders, great. Fan base, great. Man, C.J. McCollum, Brandon Ingram, and this next year, the problem is this. In between now and then, is another 4-month layoff. That's where it gets dangerous and dicey. So I hope he comes in committed to what you were just talking about with James Harden and comes in committed the way Joel Embiid did this year, transformed his game. Come in ready day one. The most svelte you've ever looked. For a guy that size, that's not, svelte might not be the best word, but you know what I mean. Show us the best version of yourself physically day one of camp so we can have now projected long-term success with you. That's all we want. That's all I took. That's great to see. Now, let's see it again in early October.
I'm sure he will. 345 days. I'm sure he's clamoring to get out there.
He does look, he's in a lot better of shape now than he did in that Gatorade. Do you remember that Gatorade commercial?
Yeah.
Look, my man was weighing 350 plus pounds.
Yeah.
Like, so at least he's progressing the right way.
We all get thick and fluctuate. I can relate. So it's it's all good.
Okay.
We'll be ready to go.
I tacked on my COVID 10. I had my lockdown 10.
It is what it is. You know, we all ebb and flow in life. We're trying to get it right. All right, you guys are off the clock for just a minute. I'm going to bring in the football guys because Baker Mayfield, and Jay, you're going to get your take on this a little later in the show, saying he feels disrespected by the Cleveland Browns after they traded for Deshaun Watson last month, effectively ending Mayfield's tenure after 4 seasons as the team's starting quarterback. Though Mayfield remains on the Browns roster, the team is actively looking to trade him. Mayfield said the Seattle Seahawks, who traded away star quarterback Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos this offseason, were probably the most likely option for him. But I'll let Baker explain for himself.
I feel disrespected, 100%, because I was told one thing and they completely did another. When I wasn't performing on the field, that's when it really started going downhill. Then when it started hindering my play, and that's when I started losing my own self-confidence and just losing myself. This past year was rough. I would love to show up to somebody's cubicle and just boo the shit out of them. And watch them crumble.
There they are, Louis Riddick, Damian Woody. Gentlemen, it's good to see you both. And Damian, I did see your IG post about the piano, and you might be playing a little something. So we'll be addressing that later. And it's not just going to be a little do-re-mi, okay? Because a girl's not going to let that go. But good to see you both. And I'll start with you here, Lou. You just heard Baker Mayfield. Is he justified in feeling disrespected by the Browns organization?
Yeah, I think he is, because I think there's more to this story than probably what we see on the surface here, which on the surface it looks like, look, Baker, you know what? If they could get another player who's better than you, a la Deshaun Watson, then that's what the NFL is all about, and that's what they'll do. So deal with it, right? I mean, that's just the way it goes. Don't sit here and whine and complain on podcasts. Just move on with your career. Go to another place. It doesn't matter. It's not about disrespect. It's about the business. But I think there's more to it than that. And I think that has to do with the fact that this is a guy who played hurt last year. He played beat up, and I mean severely beat up. And he played with a shoulder harness that, if you looked at it and you saw just how much it compromised his ability to throw the football with accuracy and throw with his normal range of motion and his normal throwing motion, you would have said he had no business being out there, and you would have some more context as to why some of his throws looked just absolutely atrocious. And he was like all over the map, inconsistent. But he kept going out there and playing. Look, I personally thought he should have shut it down last year. It should have got his shoulder taken care of. It should have just healed up for this coming season. But it seems like there were people who were saying, look, we need to have you out there on the football field. You give us the best chance to win. You are the former #1 overall pick. But then it turned around and hurt him, because once then the offseason comes around, the football team starts to the football operation starts to evaluate the football team and its play on the football field. They look at Baker and they go, man, he was bad last year. And we have the ability to go out here and maybe acquire a guy like Deshaun Watson. So that's just what we're going to go and do. And maybe they didn't communicate that to him. Maybe he then turns around and says to them, but look, I went out there and played hurt. You know I was playing hurt. You know that compromised my performance. So in that way, I could understand him feeling as though he was disrespected and maybe told one thing and they went and did another. I think all of this can be eliminated by two things. One, communication on the part of the Browns, which is to say, hey, look, man, we have the right to do whatever the hell we want. So if we want to go out and get somebody else, that's what we can do, and we're going to tell you that we're in it right now with Deshaun Watson. And number two, for Baker, look, don't always air all of your emotions out on social media and on podcasts and all that. I get you're a human being, and I respect that about him. You'll know exactly what he's feeling at all times. I don't know if it's always good, but you'll know that about him. But I think he needs to kind of tone that down a little bit, because what it's doing is it's damaging his reputation. It's severely damaging his reputation. And I personally like the guy in my interactions with him, which I've had a couple of them now over the past couple of years.
Lewis, how so is it damaging his reputation?
Well, I'd say because people feel as though Baker is just the kind of guy who just always is talking a lot and not really backing it up. A guy who's always doing commercials. He's always having Instagram posts. He's always reacting emotionally to when things don't go when things don't go right for him. That he's always just kind of chirping and running his mouth. And you know what? I just don't look. I think having those feelings, it's one thing to have them in private. It's another thing to air them out publicly. Because when you air things out publicly that you should just probably keep privately, people are going to interpret them in different ways, or rather in ways that may not accurately reflect how you really are. And I think that would be the case for all of us. All of us say things privately that we wouldn't want to have said publicly. Fair. And have them be dissected publicly.
Woody?
Yeah, listen, I think Baker Mayfield is naive to think that the Cleveland Browns wouldn't try to upgrade that position. I think, the one thing I've spoken about, and Lewis knows this as well. When you come into the National Football League, they're always looking to try to replace you, try to upgrade you. If they have any inkling they can go out there and get someone maybe at a cheaper price or just a better prospect, they're always looking to try to do that with Baker Mayfield. And listen, I get it. Baker Mayfield, played with that shoulder injury, left shoulder injury that hampered his his throwing motion and his ability to play at the level that he wants to play at. But we all know as players, once you step between the white lines, that's what the deal is as far as the repercussions because of that. And I think when you look at the Cleveland Browns, they look at this situation and said, you know what? We have a great roster right here, a roster that we feel is a championship type of roster, surveying the AFC as a conference. This is an absolute arms race with all the different elite quarterbacks in this conference. Do we feel like Baker Mayfield gives us the ability to go out there and be a Super Bowl contending team with all of these different quarterbacks in our conference? So I think the Cleveland Browns, regardless of how you look at the situation, how they went about it, they said, you know what? We're going to try to upgrade this position. We've seen these type of situations play out before. When I was with the New England Patriots, Drew Bledsoe had just signed like the first $100 million deal. Well, guess what? The next season, Drew Bledsoe gets hurt week 2 against the New York Jets, enter Tom Brady, and that was the end of that story. And Drew Bledsoe gets traded, from the New England Patriots following the season. So we've seen these type of stories happen over and over again in the National Football League.
Lou, let me ask you this, and I'm going to go a little bit personal agenda, but obviously you guys know I'm a New York Giants fan, right? And I'm not so sure about Daniel Dimes. I know that the team's giving him one more shot here. But I look at a guy like Baker Mayfield. Maybe he could be a starter there. What do you think, Lewis? Should he be a starter in the NFL next season?
I think he'd have to earn it, Molly. Truly have to earn it. I don't think he can go he's going to be able to go anywhere where he is anointed the day one starter type of job, and then it's the job for him, and it's his job to lose. I don't think he's at that point in his career anymore. I don't think that's how the league looks at him anymore. Because if someone did, then they would right now go ahead and try and trade for him and assume that contract. But that's not what's going to happen with him. I think Baker's really having to now. He's going to have to really just find a place that's willing to accept who he is as a player at this point in time and then allow him to compete. And I think teams, look, this is a buyer's market. It's not a seller's market. The Browns aren't in control here. All the other teams that they're looking to try and pawn him off on, they're in control right now. So I think for Baker, that limits his options because the Browns can't force teams to do what they don't want to do. So I think that is, again, going to shrink the pool even further. And really going to probably make this one of those situations that happens a lot later than it does sooner. So no, I don't think he's going to be a starter anywhere anytime soon. At least not right out of the gate.
Woody, where are you on Baker's ceiling?
Yeah, listen, I don't think there's a starting job for him right now. I agree with a lot of what Lewis was talking about. I think it's a situation where he's going to eventually find a landing spot wherever the Cleveland Browns, find a amenable trade, and he's going to have to go out there and earn the spot. I just think that league evaluators probably look at Baker. He can be a starting quarterback, but no one's going to give him a starting job right out of the gate.
All right, fair enough. Gentlemen, we're going to get a quick commercial break, and I will talk to you in just a bit. Still ahead on First Take, Ben Simmons has a change for Deshaun Watson last month, effectively ending Mayfield's tenure after 4 seasons as the team's starting quarterback. Though Mayfield remains on the Browns roster, the team is actively looking to trade him. Mayfield said the Seattle Seahawks, who traded away star quarterback Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos this offseason, were probably the most likely option for him. But I'll let Baker explain for himself, and he has a great couch.
I feel disrespected, 100%, because I was told one thing and they completely did another. When I wasn't performing on the field, that's when it really started going downhill. Then when it started hindering my play, and that's when I started losing my own self-confidence and just losing myself. This past year was rough. I would love to show up to somebody's cubicle and just boo the shit out of them. Yeah. And watch them crumble.
Lewis and D Wood are back. First, let me just tell you this. Stephen A. always accuses me of like being all over the place. Like I'm always paying attention. You guys will be talking. I'm looking at the bookshelf, like just all over. So the couch got me last time because I was like, that's a sick couch. That looks so. But is it possible? Can we show the dog again? Did you see the dog? Can we?
Private parts exposed. Does not give a damn. Look at
legs up, chilling. I mean,
just letting it air out, Lewis.
It took me the second time around.
That's what I'm saying.
To pick up on the dog right there, just living his best life. He is not stressed, unlike Baker.
Hey.
See, this is what Stephen A. talks about. I need to stay focused. Guys, great to have you back with us. I want to start with Jay Will on this one, bringing a different perspective. Jay, do you feel like Baker's justified in feeling disrespected on how this whole situation was handled with the Browns?
Do I feel like he's justified? Guys, sure, of course. As a professional athlete playing back in the day, you take everything that your organization does to you personally because you're personally invested. And I get that Baker Mayfield will go into his bag of emotions. Let's be honest about it, guys. No one cares. No one cares. Fans want to see results on the field. And here's where he lost me. I get having the shoulder injuries. I get playing through injuries, even though Matthew Stafford played through a lot of injuries. We didn't hear anything from him. He just won a Super Bowl. I get all that stuff. But when it comes down to it, was the last line, Big Wood and Lewis, that really lost me, where he went into, well, how would you feel if, fans just showed up to your cubicle and booed the hell out of you every single day? I'm like, why are you going there? Because you know what? You're making a guaranteed $19 million a year for this upcoming year. Guaranteed $19 million. And you know what, Baker? You've had opportunities. I know you had multiple head coaches, multiple OCs. And trust me, I'm a Baker Mayfield fan. I want to see him win. But when he starts talking so much to the point that he's ridiculing fans are going to boo him regardless. Right, guys? He wasn't winning. And by the way, I know you feel disrespected, but the Cleveland Browns just landed a top 5 quarterback. A top 5 quarterback in this league who they guaranteed over $200+ million to. This is the way big business is done. So instead of telling me about the spilt milk, tell me about your plan on how you're going to go out and you're going to kick somebody's tail and how you're going to get a starting position next year. Or tell me about what your plan is to get back on the field and how you've learned how to be a new leader. Instead of sprinkling these little things in, it completely takes me away from what I want the narrative to be about for Baker Mayfield.
Lewis?
Yeah, you know what? Jay, well, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think with Baker, the only thing I would push back on is this, and then I'll go explain further. Making $19 million a year does not take away the fact that you're a human being and that you still, have emotional reactions to how people maybe, may perceive your performance on the football field or how people may perceive your performance at whatever job that you're doing. The amount of money you make does not make you less human and make you less likely to react emotionally. But that being said, I think the thing that Baker does that he needs to correct is stop reacting publicly emotionally and making people basically turn against him because of the fact that every single time something happens to him, he has something to say about it in a way that just casts him in a less than favorable light. He does it all the time. He does it too much. He needs to keep some of these feelings private. As far as him feeling disrespected, yeah, I can totally get it. And I said this before. He did play the season hurt. I'm sure they were telling him, look, we need you out there. You give us the best chance to win. We need you to play through this injury. We know that this shoulder harness severely limits your ability to follow through and throw the football with accuracy. Yeah, you're going to have some throws that make you look like you don't even deserve to be a JV caliber quarterback. Well, then, if that's the case, and you're going to still, with that context being known inside the building, if you're still going to say, well, you know what, you just weren't good enough. You just weren't good enough. And because if you're the player, you're going, but I played hurt for you. I played hurt through this stuff. You knew what I was dealing with. So, okay, look, if that being said, you still feel as though you want to upgrade the position, just tell me about it. And so I can maybe start looking to a new team, looking for somewhere else to work. And then you guys just go ahead and do your own business. Communication is the key. Communication is the key. On their part, on Cleveland's part, on Baker's part, it's saying less, doing more. Work on your game. Don't always air out all your emotions, and kind of keep some things private that need to be private. You don't have to constantly keep Instagram story in business by constantly putting all your business out there. And then, we wouldn't even be having these discussions if those two lessons could be learned. And look, as far as we know that professional sports is about, it's a replacement business. Whether it's the NBA, the NFL, MLB, NHL, it's all replacement business. We know that. I know it from being a player, and I also know it from being a front office executive. Your job is always to try and find the next best alternative. And as a player, every time someone was brought in for a workout, I was looking over my shoulder going, what position does he play? Who's he here for? Of course, we understand all that. But it doesn't take away from the fact that there is a reason, there is a way that you need to do business. And communication is at the heart of it. And at the same time, we also need to remember that these guys are human beings and they're going to react emotionally to some things. Baker needs to learn to keep some of that stuff in-house, though, because it is tarnishing his reputation. And it is causing us to have subjects surrounding him and having conversations surrounding him like this one where it's just not favorable to him. And having talked to the kid, he's not. When you talk to him about the game and what it means to him and what's important to him, he's not what he comes off as in the public eye. He really isn't.
Jay Wood.
Yeah, listen. I guess for me, I'm just not naive enough to think that a team wouldn't come try to replace me. I'm a guy that always looked at things just straight up for what it is. The NFL, once you come into the league, and not just specifying the NFL, but all these sports leagues, once you come in, they're always looking to try to, replace you, whether it be, for a cheaper option or just for a better option. And listen, it's admirable that Baker Mayfield played with that shoulder injury. We know that. We know he was hurt last year. But the one thing as former players that we know is whether it's on the field, on the court, once you step out there when you're hurt, that people expect you to go out there and play at your best ability, at your highest ability. So when you talk about Baker Mayfield and what's going on with the Cleveland Browns as it relates to the AFC, this is an arms race. Look at the quarterbacks in that conference. And so the Cleveland Browns are sitting back and looking at, everything in its totality saying, listen, we have a roster we feel like that can go out and win a championship right now. Do we have the quarterback to go toe-to-toe with all these other top-notch QBs in our conference to be able to go toe-to-toe and go win that conference? And so for the Cleveland Browns, the decision was simple. Now, we can question the way they went about and communicating that, but we all know that sports is a cold business, especially the NFL. They don't give a damn. They're going to go out there and do what they feel is in their best interest to give themselves the best opportunity to win a championship.
Let me just play armchair psychologist because we all kind of agree on this. And Jay, I'll ask you this. What do you think Baker's motive for doing that was?
It honestly felt like it was just a release. And I get this because I do think there is something cathartic about just talking through your emotions. But if I were part of Baker's team, I would really make sure we sat down before he did this and say, hey, look, I get that you're in your own bag of your emotions about the way things were handled. They could have been handled better. But the one narrative I don't want to come off this is that, and Lou, I agree with your point about just because you make $19 million doesn't make you less human. I think that's a valid point. But I think the narrative spun off this interview as if he was playing victim. And when I start hearing a guy like Baker play victim, I start saying to myself, hold on, man. Like you had Nick Chubb, you had Kareem Hunt, you had OBJ, who in a way forced his way out. You got Jarvis Landry that came on the back end of this and said, I'm not sure this organization is for me too. So this speaks about the kind of leader that you were with the opportunity that you had. And I don't like the way that spun off because I agree with you. When you do talk to him, you feel like it's different somebody internally when you talk to him as opposed to somebody externally with the way this narrative is being pushed for him?
Yeah, look, Jay, I agree, man. Look, he has some growth that he still needs to experience. No doubt, as far as being a leader, as far as how he conducts himself in front of the media, the kind of things he shares with the media as opposed to the things he should keep in-house and just work on internally, work on personally. Because right now he's not doing himself any favors by doing podcasts like this, and you're right, and portraying himself almost, quote-unquote, as a victim. Especially considering all the circumstantial evidence surrounding him, or rather all the noise that has always surrounded him in terms of other players saying, hey, look, man, I want out of here. That it all seems to point back to maybe in some way, shape, or form, directly or indirectly, to him in his style. So, yeah, he needs to really self-assess in a big-time way, and he needs to do it privately, not on podcasts. Just don't do it like that, because that's never going to turn out good, especially if your message comes across like it just did.
Yeah, and if your goal ultimately is to be respected. All right, gentlemen, we will leave it there. When we come back, a hot story yesterday. Clayton Kershaw had a real shot at throwing the very... Okay, I've been waiting to talk about this all show, and our producer Ryan Staloff's probably laughing at me because he's obsessed with baseball, but it's the truth. We welcome in Jeff Passan here with Damian and Jay. So, Jeff, yesterday I was stalking your Twitter, and you tweeted in part that there have been over 220,000 games, just 23 perfect games in MLB history. Jeff Passan, do you think Roberts should have let Kershaw go for the perfect game?
I don't want to lay this completely on Dave Roberts. What I think we need to look at is the institution of baseball and the way that fear drives so many decisions when it comes to pitching. And listen, I spent 4 years researching this for a book on the pitching arm, and one conclusion I came to is that nobody knows anything. Like, I'd love to sit here and say after all that research that I've become enlightened and a guru of the arm. No, I don't know anything. Dave Roberts doesn't know anything. Clayton Kershaw doesn't know anything. Nobody knows how to keep pitchers healthy. And that was the frustrating part of it to me. Now, I understand the decision. Like, deep down, I get it. Clayton Kershaw is older. He's got a lot of mileage on him. He's coming off an injury. It was 36 degrees in Minnesota yesterday. His pitch count hasn't built up. Like, if there's any day to put the dampener on a guy, yesterday was the day. But at the same time, nobody can sit here and say that keeping Clayton Kershaw out of finishing that perfect game yesterday is going to guarantee or even make it any likelier that he stays healthy over the rest of the season. And that's the part that bothers me, the notion that we have any clue that X is going to equal Y in the end, that a decision is going to lead to something good.
Jeff, don't worry. I'll be the villain for you here, my friend. Sports is about magical moments. That's what we love about sports. Those moments where you sit there and you say, damn, I can't believe I witnessed this. I can't believe I witnessed Devin Booker go for over 70. Hey, I had a chance the other night watching Anthony Edwards for the Minnesota Timberwolves go for 50. You know what he did? He kept trying to get jacks up. They kept letting him go for it. And I feel like since sports is made for magical moments, Dave Roberts robbed us from a magical moment. Here's my problem with baseball in general. And, Jeff, I've called you on multitude of occasions to learn more about it. I've gone to games. I threw out the first pitch at the Mets game.
Like he literally called me to talk baseball. That is 100% true.
Exactly.
And by the way, Jay, it was the phone call was, why does your game suck? Tell me why it doesn't. So this is kind of making the point for me.
Yeah, that's my point, though, Jeff. So I'm sitting here trying to find reasons to become a bigger fan of a sport that I think at times puts me to sleep. So when I'm, breaking down things on my show, Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max, about Tyler Hero has more Instagram followers than Mike Trout, one of the most explosive offensive players in baseball, and Tyler Hero is up for Sixth Man of the Year, I'm like, that's a problem with the notoriety of the sport. So when a guy is in position to throw for the perfect game, how do you not let him go for it? Two things can be true at the same time. You can still go for a World Series championship, which you won last year, while letting your player go for an individual accolade such as this. And even if his pitch seems off, Jeff, if he's losing some of his pop, then let that be on him. If he doesn't do it, if they get a hit, then fine, take him out of the game. But don't rob us in a sport that is dying for magical moments to go viral, for a sport that's dying for people to talk more about it, from one of the most magical moments we can ever see in the history of the sport?
Yeah, listen, I'm not going to sit here and just try to bash Dave Roberts, because I think sometimes as a coach, you almost got to save a player from himself. And I look at this whole situation. To me, it's not about Dave Roberts. It's not about Clayton Kershaw. It's more about how analytics and the numbers, they drive baseball so much that they rob us of these moments. I mean, you know, Jeff, you talked about baseball has been around for 40 years, and there's only been like 20 perfect games. Like, dude, you got to go for that. Like, in a sport that's dwindling as far as, you know, fans are concerned, we've seen like how popular football and basketball, you know, are in this country. You had an opportunity where you could have showcased a moment that you don't get to see very often in baseball, and you're going to chicken out because, oh, he threw 80 pitches and we got to think long terms. Like, that's BS to me. We're at the beginning of the season. Fans want to see these type of moments. I agree with Jay Will in that regard, that you just robbed not only the fans, the intense fans of baseball, but the casual fans of an opportunity to see something special in that sport of baseball. And I think that's what, you know, Dave Roberts and maybe some of the aficionados of baseball seem to forget about this whole situation.
Jeff,
yeah, what they did give us is an ability to, they gave us an ability to debate this, which I think is a good thing. I do wonder if we'd be talking for 5 minutes about Clayton Kershaw's perfect game as opposed to this. But one thing I will say, and this is important for baseball going forward, the starting pitcher and the role of the starting pitcher has been diminished. It's been diminished, I think, to a deleterious point where the game is being harmed for it. And I think the game is going slower because of it. And I think bringing the starting pitcher back as a focal point, whether it's in the matchups, whether it's making the guys stars, is an important thing for baseball as it reimagines itself over the next few years, a priority for a number of people. And I think if that's the case, then situations like this, or of guys being yanked too early from games like Blake Snell in the postseason, we're going to see that happen less frequently, and it's going to look a lot more like baseball used to, where the starting pitcher was the star.
Yeah, I understand the intention, but it certainly was a missed moment. I like how you just go for the jugular. Just call him up. Why does your sport suck?
This is the era's best picture. I want to see him do something incredible. I don't understand why you don't let us have that moment.
Yeah. Every time I see Jeff Passan's Nintendo, I have the moment of when I used to play Duck Hunt back in the day. Did any of you guys have that, or just Mario Brothers?
I was more of a Contra, up, down, left, right, ABC.
It's real, by the way.
There you go.
Is that
it's real.
There we go.
Anyone who wonders whether it's real, it's real.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jeff. And speaking of all-time Dodger greats, of course, nobody has had a more profound impact on the sport than Jackie Robinson.